In a development no one saw coming, Blake Lively has sent shockwaves across the entertainment and legal worlds, not by what she said in a press conference or what her lawyers argued in court, but through a quiet, understated yet legally binding admission that could reshape everything in the ongoing war between her and Justin Baldoni. For months her team projected confidence. Her PR machine pushed narratives suggesting strength, victimhood, and complete certainty. But behind the courtroom doors, under sworn testimony and strategic filings, Blake made a legal admission, one that reveals not just a miscalculation but a critical mistake. The internet erupted the moment this became public. Legal analysts began dissecting the ramifications instantly. What did Blake actually admit to? Why now? And how does this shift the entire balance of her case against Justin Baldoni? More importantly, what does it say about the nature of the case itself? A battle that's gone far beyond to former collaborators into a messy, highly public, and now potentially reputation-shattering legal war. Was this Blake's team attempting to avoid a harsher exposure, a desperate move to salvage credibility, or part of a larger behind-the-scenes negotiation gone wrong? Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's camp has been silent, letting the court filings speak for themselves. And what they reveal is that Blake's carefully curated public persona may have taken a serious hit in the eyes of the court. We break down the court language, the surrounding events, and the context that led to this stunning legal moment. Because when someone like Blake Lively, whose brand thrives on image control and elite perception, makes an admission like this under oath, it means the stakes have never been higher. This is about more than just a celebrity dispute. It's about power, accountability, and whether public figures can maintain one story in the media and another in the courtroom. Let's get into the full story, the real one, not the polished version being circulated by Hollywood insiders. Before the shocking legal admission, the landscape was carefully controlled by Blake's legal and PR team. They worked tirelessly to maintain an image of confidence and legal superiority at press events. Blake remained poised. On social media, her posts remained unaffected, carefully curated snapshots of domestic bliss, red carpets, and brand partnerships. But the legal pressure was mounting. Behind the scenes, Justin Baldoni's legal team was preparing a strategy that didn't rely on drama or media spin. Instead, they focused on uncovering inconsistencies, leveraging discovery, and applying quiet, consistent legal pressure. Their filings began to raise questions not just about Blake's claims but about the actual evidence, or lack thereof, supporting her narrative. At first, Blake's team brushed it off, but it became increasingly clear that Justin's lawyers weren't bluffing, they weren't playing to the crowd, they were building something real. And when private messages, internal communications, and testimony transcripts began surfacing, the tone shifted. In the early court documents, Blake's side took a hardline stance, suggesting that Baldoni had acted unprofessionally, possibly even maliciously. But the court demanded specifics. Claims without details don't hold up, especially not under the scrutiny of pre-trial hearings. So Blake's attorneys were forced to start providing more than just accusations. They needed to present evidence. What followed was a months-long back and forth where both legal teams argued over what could be admitted into evidence, and here's where things started to unravel for Blake. Discovery forced her to turn over messages and emails she had previously sought to keep out. More importantly, she was compelled to answer on the record some very uncomfortable questions. By this stage, Justin Baldoni wasn't just defending himself anymore. He was on the offensive, legally, methodically, and without theatrics. His team laid out a timeline that began to contradict Blake's early claims. Suddenly, her team was on the back foot, responding more than attacking, explaining more than accusing. In a hearing that wasn't open to cameras but whose transcript would later cause a media firestorm, Blake Lively's attorneys made a stunning legal move. While attempting to limit the scope of Justin's discovery request, her lead counsel admitted that a previous statement one Blake had submitted in a declaration may have been inaccurate in part. This may sound mild, but in legal language, that's a bombshell. It was effectively an admission that part of Blake's official narrative wasn't fully accurate. Her team quickly tried to downplay it, framing it as a misunderstanding of timelines. But for legal observers, the implications were clear. Blake had opened the door to being impeached, not just in cross-examination but in the eyes of the judge. The moment the transcript leaked online courtesy of a court document aggregator, the media frenzy began. Headlines emerged almost instantly. Blake Lively walks back, court statement. Blake Lively's timeline under fire, legal shakeup. In Baldoni case, it became the top trending story on legal commentary forums. What made it even more damning was that Justin Baldoni's team didn't capitalize on the admission with public statements. They stayed quiet, which only added to the perception that Blake had made a serious misstep. Because when you're legal, Opponent doesn't need to comment and the documents do all the work it means. The case is tilting in their favor. Blake's attorneys filed a clarification within 72 hours attempting to frame the previous statement as legally insignificant. But the damage was already done. Not only had she admitted something was wrong, she had done so in a court filing under oath. And that meant this wasn't just a PR problem, it was a legal one. The aftermath of Blake Lively's quiet legal admission was swift and far more destructive than her team likely anticipated. While her attorneys tried to downplay the moment in court, suggesting it was a minor correction, over misremembered details, legal observers, media outlets, and internet sleuths weren't buying it. The cracks had formed and they were beginning to widen. Almost immediately, legal analysts jumped in to assess what this meant for the trajectory of the case. Multiple commentators pointed out that an inaccurate in part declaration was not just an offhand mistake. In legal terms, it gave opposing counsel, in this case Justin Baldoni's highly strategic team, leverage, and that's exactly what they used it for. Within a matter of days, Baldoni's attorneys filed a formal motion requesting a reevaluation of several past rulings, arguing that the court had made decisions based on now admitted inaccuracies in Blake's earlier testimony. They didn't accuse her of lying, not directly, but they didn't have to. The implication was strong enough. Blake Lively had submitted flawed information, and that called into question the integrity of her broader claims. This development meant one thing: discovery could be expanded. Blake's team had worked hard for months to limit what could be introduced into evidence. They argued repeatedly that certain communications and internal memos were outside the scope of the case. But now Baldoni's camp had grounds to request those very documents, and the judge, seeing the shift in tone, didn't immediately deny the motion. Suddenly, emails, Slack messages, and even recorded Zoom meetings that had previously been protected were fair game. The legal playing field had widened, and that terrified Blake's inner circle. Because in a battle where image and perception were everything, the courtroom was the one place where the truth, or at least provable facts, could not be ignored. While the court proceedings were unfolding, the public response was growing louder. The transcript containing Blake's legal admission began circulating online. News aggregators picked it up first. Then legal commentary YouTube channels broke it down line by line, memes followed, and eventually even major entertainment outlets, typically protective of Hollywood elites, began asking uncomfortable questions. Why would Blake Lively walk back a sworn declaration? One outlet asked. Another pointed out, if the timeline in her case is faulty, what else might be incorrect? These questions spread like wildfire, and the headlines, though technically speculative, were damaging. Behind the scenes, damage control was in full effect. Blake's PR team reportedly advised her to go silent for a while, avoiding public appearances and interviews. It was a strategy designed to prevent further missteps, but to some observers the silence looked like retreat. And in a high-profile case, silence can be interpreted as guilt. On the other side of the aisle, Justin Baldoni's strategy remained brilliantly understated. He refused to engage publicly. No Instagram hints, no vague tweets, no red carpet smirks. His team stuck to the filings, allowing the court documents to do all the talking. And that made each revelation even more impactful. One particularly significant filing from Baldoni's team introduced internal planning documents from Blake's production arm, which showed her team was already anticipating media fallout over the dispute before she publicly acknowledged there was even a conflict. This directly contradicted earlier claims she made in filings and interviews, where she had portrayed the breakdown with Baldoni as sudden, unexpected, and one-sided. Even more damning, an internal document contained a section titled Crisis Mitigation Timeline Prep. In it, advisors suggested potential dates and backstories to frame Blake's narrative in the media, a practice not uncommon in celebrity PR but disastrous when exposed in a legal setting. When combined with her earlier court declaration, the one now admitted to be inaccurate, it created a troubling impression that parts of her case may have been built not just on shaky ground but on narrative design. Naturally, this sent shockwaves through the media. Commentators weren't just questioning the legal side of things anymore, they were beginning to question Blake Lively's trustworthiness, not as a celebrity, as a litigant. And once that public doubt sets in, it's nearly impossible to walk back. Her legal team doubled down on technical defenses. They argued that none of the discrepancies changed the core facts of the case, that the admission wasn't an admission of guilt, but merely an adjustment to keep the record straight. But in the world of public perception, especially in the age of TikTok, legal analysts and Twitter threads, dissecting every comma nuance gets lost. What remained was a powerful headline: Blake Lively admits legal inaccuracy. The fallout extended even Further, some of Blake's industry contacts began pulling away. A sponsorship deal with a major luxury brand, one reportedly worth 7 figures, was suddenly paused. Sources close to the brand cited a desire to wait until the case resolves. Others quietly shifted away from associating too publicly with her name. Blake, once seen as an untouchable icon of elegance and professionalism, now had a cloud over her head. For her team, the worst part wasn't just the loss of control, it was that the damage had come from within. They hadn't lost the media war to a tabloid. They hadn't been taken down by a tell-all interview or a rogue former employee. They had lost control of the narrative because of a single sentence in a court filing, a sentence that they themselves submitted. And now, with discovery expanded and the court reopening certain doors they'd hoped had stayed shut, the case had entered a new phase, one where truth wasn't just encouraged, it was legally required. And that reality was something even the best PR firm couldn't spin away. As the courtroom drama intensified, the effects began to ripple across Hollywood. And this time, the tremors weren't just felt behind closed doors. Industry insiders, studios, directors, and even fellow celebrities were suddenly faced with a question they never expected to ask: should they publicly distance themselves from Blake Lively? What made this question so difficult was the speed of the fallout. Blake had spent years cultivating an image of elegance and reliability, someone studios could trust, brands could depend on, and audiences adored. Her projects were always wrapped in a sheen of prestige, and until recently her name was synonymous with safety and profitability. But in Hollywood, perception is everything, and when legal filings started to undermine that perception, the reaction was swift and strategic. At least 2 major production meetings that included Lively's name on shortlists were reportedly canceled within 48 hours of her legal admission becoming public. Sources close to a leading streaming platform said it's not that people think she's guilty of something, it's that they don't want to get caught in the middle of a public unraveling. Even in a town as cynical as Hollywood, optics still matter, and Blake's optics were no longer pristine. It wasn't just the corporate side that reacted. Behind the scenes, agents began advising clients to be cautious about associating with Lively. During this period, one agency insider revealed that at least 3 actors turned down informal opportunities to collaborate with her team until the legal dust settled. Not because they believed she was at fault, but because the headlines had become unpredictable. And unpredictability is a currency few in the industry want to spend. Meanwhile, some former collaborators began subtly weighing in. One producer, who had previously sung Blake's praises, posted a cryptic tweet: "Truth always finds a way to shine through, even in the darkest storms." Another director, who had been attached to a rumored upcoming project with Lively, quietly scrubbed her name from his website's development slate. The message was clear: the industry was paying attention, and many weren't comfortable standing too close anymore. But the most shocking response came not from producers or executives, it came from other celebrities. Taylor Swift, a longtime friend of Blake's, had remained mostly silent throughout the earlier phases of the lawsuit. But after the legal admission, she liked and then unliked a tweet from a Swift fan account, speculating whether Blake had lied to protect someone powerful. The moment was captured and screenshotted by online sleuths before the like vanished, sparking a viral trend: #SwiftUnlikesBlake. Although Taylor didn't comment publicly, the fan speculation exploded. Was this a subtle sign of disapproval or a case of social media misclicks being blown out of proportion? Regardless of the intent, the perception was already cemented. Blake's inner circle might be fraying too. What complicated the situation further was Blake's own silence. For someone so adept at shaping media narratives, she suddenly had nothing to say. No posts, no interviews, no red carpet appearances. For a celebrity used to controlling the spotlight, her absence became the headline. Commentators began asking, was she preparing a quiet exit from the public eye, or just waiting for the legal tide to shift? And while Blake kept quiet, Justin Baldoni's strategy continued to shine. In the courtroom, his legal team made no dramatic claims. They simply followed procedure, filed methodically, and let the evidence do the talking. Outside the courtroom, Justin remained visible, attending industry events, supporting charitable causes, and even hinting at new projects in development. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. One party seemed in control of the moment, the other was nowhere to be found. This dynamic created a kind of unspoken industry judgment. In Hollywood, people often follow the heat, and right now Blake wasn't generating heat, she was generating hesitation. Even those who privately supported her were reluctant to do so, publicly afraid of becoming part of a conversation they couldn't control. Adding to the drama was a newly surfaced detail from a confidential source close to the case: an internal memo from Blake's PR team written weeks before the legal admission. In it, the tone was alarmingly cautious. The team discussed potential blowback from internal inconsistencies, and even referenced the risk of losing control of public narrative if document trails become public. This memo, once revealed through secondary court discovery, was viewed by legal experts as a warning sign that her camp knew what was coming. Naturally, this sparked another round of online outrage. If Blake's team anticipated a backlash, why did they double down on the narrative? Why not adjust course earlier? Why not acknowledge the gaps? Instead of risking credibility in court for her critics, this was proof of manipulation. That Blake's team had tried to outmaneuver the legal system with strategic PR. For her defenders, it was merely the standard chess game every public figure plays when backed into a corner. But even her defenders were finding it harder to speak up as more details emerged. By this point, the court of public opinion was working overtime. Commentary YouTubers posted 90-minute deep dives into Blake's evolving narrative. Legal TikTokers analyzed her filings like crime scene investigators. Podcasts debated whether this admission would trigger a wave of career-damaging consequences, or whether Lively could emerge with her brand intact. For many, the answer was now uncertain. Because if Blake Lively, one of the most seemingly composed, calculated, and protected celebrities, could falter this publicly, and this legally, then anything was possible. The facade had been cracked, the mask had slipped, and what remained was a figure more vulnerable than anyone had previously imagined. Her team scrambled to control the messaging, releasing short, vague statements to select media outlets, suggesting the legal process remains ongoing, and that Blake has always cooperated with the court's instructions. But these bland reassurances failed to move the needle. They were too vague to inspire trust and too generic to make news. Even worse, rumors began to swirl that Justin Baldoni's legal team might seek sanctions. Although no formal motion had been filed, insiders hinted that discussions were happening, that Blake's shifting story might warrant further legal consequences beyond just the courtroom embarrassment. While those rumors remain unconfirmed, they added fuel to an already burning fire. As the legal and public fallout continues to unfold, one thing is clear: the image Blake Lively carefully constructed over years is no longer bulletproof. What began as a private legal dispute between former collaborators has now grown into a cautionary tale about power perception and the risks of controlling a narrative too tightly in the digital age. Her quiet legal admission, seemingly minor in the world of legal terminology, triggered a cascade of doubt that no amount of curated Instagram posts or polished PR statements could contain. This isn't just about one sentence in a court filing. It's about what that sentence revealed: that even the most pristine public figures can stumble when forced to reconcile public image with courtroom truth. For many, the moment Blake's team admitted to an inaccuracy shattered the illusion of total control. Suddenly, she wasn't just a star defending herself, she was a litigant under pressure, caught between the court's demand for facts and the media's hunger for narrative. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's silence proved louder than words. His refusal to engage in media sparring, combined with a disciplined legal strategy, allowed him to remain calm amid the storm. It also cast Blake's increasingly erratic public silence into sharper relief as he continued to appear composed, present, and focused on the facts. Blake's vanishing act began to look less like strategy and more like retreat. In the entertainment industry, where perception often outweighs reality, that retreat is now being interpreted as vulnerability. Former allies have grown distant, potential projects are quietly dissolving. Even fans once steadfast in their loyalty are beginning to ask difficult questions. Not because they want to condemn her, but because they feel blindsided by the sudden cracks in what once appeared to be an unbreakable image. The biggest lesson here isn't just for celebrities, it's for the entire public. Watching these moments unfold, image management, no matter how polished, cannot override legal reality. And when you live in a world where every court transcript can be analyzed on TikTok, every motion can be posted to Reddit, and every hesitation can become a headline, authenticity matters more than ever. Whether Blake Lively will recover from this moment remains to be seen. She is without question a talented actor and a powerful presence in Hollywood. But the road back from a moment like this isn't paved with red carpets, it's paved with accountability, transparency, and time. And right now, those are the three things her team can't fully control. As for Justin Baldoni, he's no longer just the other side of a celebrity legal dispute. He's emerging as the symbol of patient strategy and quiet strength, the very opposite of the chaos now surrounding Blake. And in a world where the truth eventually surfaces, that quiet strength may prove to be the most powerful force of all.